Hi everyone, I hope you're all doing well. Today we're going to be talking about blood type and how antibodies and antigens play a role in different blood types that an individual can have and how they play a role in blood transfusion. So our agenda for the day is going to be as follows. Number one, you're going to be checking your answers to yesterday's questions on specific immunity. So they're attached here with two images. Number two, fill in your notes for the lesson using these teacher PowerPoint slides that are attached below and the YouTube video, if you're listening. Great job. Number three, you're going to complete blood type game sheet that is attached below, and I've made a copy for each of you. When you complete this, after you go through the lesson and take your notes on blood type, make sure that you are using the links that are attached in the sheet. If you don't read the links fully, the questions aren't going to make sense and you're probably not going to be able to fully understand what they're asking of you. So make sure that you read through the two links that are attached in this blood type game. So let's get right on into it. Blood types. What are we going to be talking about today? So yesterday we talked about the difference between antibodies and antigens, and we discussed that antigens are on the surface of the cell, and they're on the surface of any cell. So it could be a bacteria, it could be a pathogen, but it can also be found on red blood cells. So in this video that's linked here, just in this image, you can see that the red blood cell is going to have antigens on it, or it's going to have materials that are on the cell surface that's going to be able to be recognizable. And remember that our antibodies, you can see in the image here, are going to be these Y-shaped structures that are going to be able to recognize specific antigens. So today we'll be taking a look at the antigens that are present on red blood cells and how antibodies that are in our blood play a role in what it is going to do to these red blood cells. So, and again, of course, after you watch this video here is a nice overview of what we're about to talk about. So I would recommend taking a look at this video right after you take the notes for this lesson. Therefore, let's take a look at our first note slide. So if you turn to this slide in your notes packet, we're going to go through and take a look at all of the different antigens and antibodies that can be found in the blood based off of different blood types. So let's start from the top. The ABO blood type, so we know that there can be A blood types, B blood types, AB, O. So all these different blood types. This classification system uses the presence or absence of certain antigens on red blood cells to categorize blood into 4 different types. So the distinct antigen that's on our red blood cells is going to determine what blood type the person has. So let's take a look at the different blood types. In your notes, you're going to be filling out this chart. So you're going to draw these different red blood cells and draw the antibodies that would be in that blood type, and then take a look at the blood types that they can take in if, say, they have to get a transfusion. So let's first take a look at antigen A. So if you had type A blood type, your red blood cells are going to have the A antigen. So you can see these blue dots. These blue dots that are coming off of the red blood cell is the A antigen. So in this person, the person who has blood type A, they are going to have antibodies that are for blood type B. So their antibodies are going to be antibody B. So these people, blood type A, they cannot have B blood be transfused into their system. They can also not have a B blood transfused into the system. And why is this so? Let's take a look. Let's say this person A was transfused with type B blood. You can see here that we have a different antigen on this B blood red blood cell. So if this blood cell was put into the type A person, the antibodies would attack that blood cell because it matches the antibodies found in the type A person, and so on and so forth. So the same thing kind of goes for type B blood. If you got transfused with type A blood, the type B blood has the antibody for A, so it would attack that red blood cell with the antigen for A. Now let's look at type AB blood. For type AB blood, that red blood cell is going to have the antigens for both. So that person's blood is going to have neither antibody. So it's going to be able to receive, or the person's going to be able to receive any type of blood, because they're not going to say no to A or B. They're going to accept both. And you might know AB blood as the universal recipient. You might have heard that before, because anyone with a type AB blood can receive any type of blood if they have to have a transfusion. And now for type O blood, works the same, but now if you take a look at type O blood, the red blood cell doesn't have any antigens on it. It doesn't have antigen A or B. Because of this, the blood is going to have the antibody for both A and B. So if a type O person got a transfusion from an A, a B, or a B, their antibodies would attack all of those blood cells. So although type O blood is the universal donor, they can only accept O blood themselves. So take a look at this chart. Make sure you go through each of the boxes and write them down in your notes, and make sure it's making sense to you, the difference between antigens and antibodies and what's attacking what if there was a transfusion. So for this slide, you don't have a space in your notes packet for it, but let's just read through because we're going to reiterate it on the next slide. So again, kind of a throwback here, antibodies are specific to antigens. The immune system recognizes foreign antigens and produces antibodies in response. So if you were given the wrong blood type, your body might react fatally as the antibodies cause the blood to clot. So let's say you got the wrong blood type transfused into your body. The bad thing that's going to happen is that blood clots are going to start to form because your antibodies are going to start bringing the blood that's not supposed to be there together. And we already discussed blood type O, but blood type O is considered the universal donor. So as it has no antigens against which the recipient immune system can react. So type AB, however, is the universal recipient, because remember we said that they don't have any antibodies against A or B. So as the blood has no, here we go again, as the blood has no antibodies which will react to AB antigens. So just make sure that you understand which blood type is the universal donor, which blood type is the universal recipient. So moving on to the next slide, you now have this in your notes packet. I just wrote down some of the main points for this slide, so you can go through and take these two paragraphs and consolidate them into your own words. So again, we know that antibodies are specific to the antigen, and we know that blood type O is our universal donor, and blood type AB is our universal recipient. Here is a nice visual to see if how antibodies connect with the antigen. So let's say you have a type A blood donor here, but the person that's receiving that blood is type B and they have antibodies for type A. The antibody is going to take all of the blood cells that shouldn't be there and connect to the antigen, and they're going to agglutinate. When this happens, a blood clot forms, which can be fatal. Remember, in our cardiovascular unit, we talked about blood clots and how they can block the flow of blood to the heart and to the body. So now with the information that we have just learned about, I want you to try to answer these two questions. Number one, what blood types can type A person not receive? Let's see if you can answer this at home. So what blood types can type A person not receive? Yes, they cannot receive B or AB blood. They can't get a transfusion from either. Why is this? Because type A person is going to have antibodies for B. So if they get a B type blood, their antibodies are going to attack it. Let's look at number two. What blood types can type O person not receive and why? I'll give you a second to answer that one. Exactly. They can't receive A, B, or AB. Because remember, the type O person doesn't have any antigens and therefore has antibodies for A, B, AB. Okay, so that's the reasoning of why a type O person can't receive any other blood types but type O. And that concludes our overview for antigens and antibodies and how they play a role in blood type. So now that we have that information, I want you to go into the blood type game and you are going to read through the intro and read through these two links because they're going to help you out. And it's really fun. Once you get to the game at the very bottom, you're acting as the medical personnel that is going to help with the transfusion. So it's a fun game. But what I want you to take note of is that in our presentation that we were just talking about, we only discussed AB, and O antigens. What we didn't discuss is that there's also an RH antigen that is present on red blood cells. And the difference between these two antigens is as follows. So if you click the link and you go into the website, as you're reading through, this paragraph states the difference between the AB antigens versus the RH. So AB antigens are sugars, while RH antigens are proteins. And these RH antigens are going to play a role just like AB antigens would, and the blood from person to person is going to have antibodies for RH depending on the antigen that it has. So let's say we have RH plus. That means you have the RH antigen on the red blood cell. But let's say there's an RH minus, then we know that there is no RH antigen on the blood cell. If there's no RH antigen on the blood cell, what do you think the antibody is going to have? Exactly. The antibody would have RH if there was no RH antigen in the blood. So make sure you're reading through the two links that are attached here to answer the questions. If you have any questions on the topic, please feel free to email me or join the Google Hangout. It is a very fascinating topic about blood types and how that all plays a role with blood transfusions and how it must be very, very intricate, and you must really look into the person's blood type before any transfusion happens between blood. So again, please feel free to ask me any questions. I hope you guys have a great day, and I hope to see you soon. Have a good one.